Hi everyone, this is JP here at Brizy. We're going to have a full tutorial for this video and we're going to build out a photo portfolio single page site. To give you an idea of how this page looks, I'm going to show you the demo that I had prepared. It is very simple, but this is the kind of powerful site that if you're a photographer and you want to make an impression and maybe just introduce people to your portfolio, show what you can do, you don't need more. Remember, when it comes to photography, it's the photography that speaks, not all the mumbo jumbo you write on your site. So, very simple portfolio site, and this is all done in Brizy Cloud free. So everything I'm going to show you today, you can do absolutely free. You of course can do it also in Brizy Cloud Pro or on the Brizy WordPress plugin, but I'm going to use the Brizy Cloud free platform for this. And basically, the number one element we're going to use here is the image element, nothing else. Well, I said basically we're going to use a text element and a form element, but for the rest, look at this. These are just images and it's a beautiful, clean, minimalistic, did I say beautiful? Yeah, site. And then we have the lightbox effect here. So if you have images that have different dimensions like this one, and you want people to have a bigger view, they can click on these and they can see the full image. Very nicely done. Before we jump in and start building the site, two things that we have to get our heads around from the beginning. The first one is the white border that is consistent throughout this design. This is very popular when we are looking at journals, magazines, newspapers, and portfolios. And the reason why it is so popular is because it probably comes from the print and the magazine industry, where we have these borders on our pages, makes us think that it's kind of like a magazine we are looking at. And that's why you will see not only is it applied between the images, but also all around my page. And this is what we have to consider very carefully. Consistency here is the key. So you have to decide on the size of this white border or margin, and you have to keep it consistent throughout. And that's going to be our number one challenge. I have applied 30 pixels here, but you're going to understand very quickly we're going to work with images, we're going to work with columns, and we're going to work with blocks. And we have to decide where do we apply those 30 pixels around an image or a column or to the block. And before I go to the second point, just on this, there's going to be more than one way that you can do this. You're going to either apply it to the columns or to the images or to the block and mix and match that around. So I'm going to show you one way. You may do it a complete different way. But, and this is the big but here, I would say if you are new to website making, this is an excellent tutorial for you to test out and see how padding and margins work. If you can master this page and you can do it by yourself, you will be the master of padding and margins within Brizy. The second one is going to be responsiveness. Every time we say responsiveness, we talk about how this will look on a tablet like an iPad or on a mobile device. Because if I press F12 on my keyboard, that will take me into the inspector, and then up here I can toggle the responsive displays on. Currently up here I have selected the iPad. How it displays on a desktop is never going to be the same on tablets or on mobile devices, and we're going to run into magnificent challenges with that. You have to be a little bit creative, think a little bit different when you do that, and you'll have to make decisions again. Do you want to keep the 30 pixels or do you want to reduce it a little bit for a little different display? And then if I go here and I show you the phone, you're going to see I've done something completely different with the phone. Instead of having those images in a grid, I've made them in this landscape format. Still, when I click on them, you're going to get the full image, but this is a totally different way of displaying it. And those are the decisions you will have to make. How do you want it to appear on a mobile and tablet device? I'm going to show you the ways that I've played around with. And let's put a disclaimer there before we start. Even though I'm showing you this page and I show you what I've done, I'm very well known for not being able to do the same thing a second time around. So maybe some of these images will be in different places as we create this. Maybe I'll change a little bit here and there. Maybe change the size of the text. Who knows? Even the font. Let's be crazy. I'm going to close this. We go into Brizy Cloud. If you haven't signed up for Brizy Cloud, it's as simple as your email address and a password. go to Brizy.cloud, sign in, and work along with me. You're going to learn how to build pages in no time. It's going to be a little bit tricky at the very beginning, but the more you do it, the better you'll get. Second piece of advice is don't just sit and watch. Try and challenge yourself, especially if you're at home, to do this. And you'll find that watching is super easy. Copying is not that easy. So before you start being creative, try and copy, try and do what I do. And then when you feel comfortable with that, you can start going out on your own, my dear Padawan. Of course, if you've been designing websites for a very long time, you don't have to do any of those that I just said. You may just be interested in seeing how Brizy works. I'm here in the dashboard, and to create a new website, we go here to create new project. And we're just creating a single page. And I struggle sometimes to convince people who have small concerns and small businesses, don't go for extravagant sites. Keep it simple, because especially for people who are accessing your website on a cell phone device, being able to have it just on one screen, not have to click around and navigate all over the place, it's really convenient. So that single page is a great idea. Website and landing page, this is what we want to build. And we click here on create. It's going to create a new one for us, and it's going to give it a default name. This one is called project number 3. Okay, I've already created photo portfolio. So let's call it photo portfolio number 2. I'll call it number 2 so we don't get confused. And then let's go into edit project. As I enter it, the first thing I'm going to do is go here to the bottom right hand corner where it's published. And I'll just click publish to lock it in. Before I start building my site, I'm actually going to do a little bit site management here. I'll bring in a favicon, which is a site icon, and I'll set my site title. Go to the sidebar here on the left, and here where you see the little cog, click on that. That brings you into the settings. And in Brizy Cloud, to set that, you go up here to settings. And this is where we will focus on the site settings. The first one is site title, and we will call this guy Jackson Brown. And then site description, my best pieces up to date. And then over here, we have a favicon. And the favicon is that small little icon. You see, currently, there's the Brizy logo. That is the favicon. It means your favorite icon. And Microsoft came up with this way back when with Internet Explorer. When you save your favorite page, then this is the icon that will display for your favorite page. Nowadays, we just call it a site icon. I still like the word favicon. It's so la-di-da. We want to sound very professional, right? But remember, favicon only means that little thing that appears there, or in your favorite tabs. You're going to see that icon in your favorite tabs. Grab one from your Finder, your Explorer. Click here on Select. And here in my Explorer, all the images that I will use for this tutorial. And I have here my little favicon. Come in, little buddy. And then let's just click here on Save Changes. You can click outside here. Let's click on Update. And let's see if we refresh this page, whether it will bring in our little favicon for us. It won't, but if you click here on Preview and you go to the front end, you will see that the favicon will appear there. There we go. So our page is empty, favicon set, but when you're in the builder, it is Brizy's time to rock and roll. Talking about the images, I had used images from our good friend Unsplash.com. And the reason I used that is because it's free and you can go play around with that as well. You decide on a topic that you want to use. Like, for example, I had used landscape and I just typed in their landscape and then I went through this and I selected images. I know I used this one. Download it over here. It's free, and give a little bit recommendation where possible if you can. All these images you can use. They are totally free. And that's the ones that I will be using within this tutorial. Start building your page, Peter. Click here in the middle, and we are going to build everything from scratch. So to do that, add a blank block. Block settings up in the right-hand corner. Click on that, and we go here where we see background, and we will bring in the background first. In Brizy Cloud Pro, currently everything you upload directly from your Finder or your Explorer. Hopefully one day we will have a media library manager, something like that, where we can leave them and import them. For now, this is the way you do it. Click here on image to upload the image. And then here you select the image that you want to bring in for your hero banner. When you see the image, you will see the blue little dot. Now this is what I call a focal selector. The focal is your focus area. A focus selector, that's even better. You use this here to make sure which of the image you want to always remain in focus. I'm going to leave it there because for this one, I want to have this block at full height. Go to settings over here. Click on settings, and then here where you see height, currently it's set to auto. From the drop down, just select full height. This image, or this block rather, will now always fill your screen's height. Doesn't matter which device you are on. If it's a small display like a laptop or a 4K display, it's always going to stretch all the way from the top to the bottom. That's what full height is all about. And that's very simple, right? We already did that. Now let's bring in those borders, or what should we call it? Let's call it a frame. We want to have that white frame all around our page. To achieve that, we're actually going to apply a white frame around each block. And as we link those blocks, it will look like the entire page has that white frame. I'll go to the block settings up here, and I'm very grateful for the team for adding this feature last year. Go to More Settings, and now we begin working with things like padding and margins. Sometimes the difference between the two is very logical. It makes a lot of sense. Other times you're going to drag a slider and you're not going to be entirely sure what the hey that slider just did. And you should just not be scared because Brizy does undo very, very well. There's a lot of apps out there that have an undo button, but it doesn't always work that well. Even my Photoshop, sometimes a certain undo doesn't work. But Brizy allows you to undo, and it's your best friend. And the shortcut key always is Control-Z on the Windows, Command-Z on a Mac. So what we want to start working with here is to understand the difference between padding and margin. If you've been working with website design for a while, you will have a good idea. If you are new to this, that's why I suggested at the beginning that you try and do what I'm doing here step by step so that you can see the challenges you are going to run into and moreover, the frustration you are going to encounter. When I'm training, I always tell people, think of a house on a piece of land with a fence around that house. The padding is the area between the fence and the house. So more padding you have, the smaller your house, because the fence remains exactly where it is. Margins, on the other hand, is where that fence is often located and the area outside. And this is the analogy that I like to use. It's not perfect, like no analogy ever is, but it's a good idea to understand. So when we look at what's inside this block, you see there is this container here. That is what is inside this block. So if we want to make this area smaller, which is inside the fence, we're going to use padding. You can link all the borders here, and if I change it, you can see there how it changes there at the top and the bottom. This is irrelevant actually for us because we're not going to care much about that. On the other hand, margins is going to move the fence. And if I want to have a little bit more space and I increase the margin like that, see what happens over here. Okay, so grab it, drag it around to understand how this margin will affect your page. And don't be nervous. Like I've told you before, Control-Z, Command-Z, your best friend forever and ever, besties. I'm going to apply here pixels. And you see always with padding and margins, you have two options. Pixels, well, and then percentage, sometimes it seems. I'm going to stick with margin pixels here because I want to have full control over this white border. I'm going to type there 30 pixels. It's maybe a random number that I came up with. Originally, I started working with 15 pixels. I thought it's a little bit too small, so I made it 30. But hey, if you want to really have a magazine feeling, you can go for something like 75. Now it's much, much bigger, but I feel it's almost like a page in a magazine where you have those big margins around it. For this tutorial, I'm going to stick to 30. And guess what? We have applied that so easily by just changing the margins. Do note one thing. that we have applied it here to all 4 of the fences, the margins of this block. So even though you cannot see the margin here at the bottom, there are 30 pixels added to the bottom as well. Let's update. Click there at the bottom, Control S, Command S. Let's go preview it on the front end. You can see here our margins. And as I scroll down, you can also see the margin here at the bottom. And the image, always full height. So if I drag it here, you're going to see that my image displays full height because we set the block to full height. How easy was that, right? Close out here and let's add Jackson Brown Photography Professional Superior in here. And that we will do with a text. Click on the plus and our tray opens here with all the elements. Click and drag on the text and drop it over here. I'll click on it and the first thing I'll do is change the color of the text so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to put it in the center by aligning it over here. And then I'll go and change the text. To highlight a text in an entire sentence, you can triple click 1, 2, 3. So we call it Jackson Brown, renowned photographer. And I'm already changing the text from my demo. That doesn't matter. To change it, click on the T for typography. And every time you hear the word typography, it means font. The first thing I'll do is change the font. And I'm going to use a good friend called Montserrat. I like this font a lot. And then over here with size, I'll just click here on the up. And then I suddenly think, you know what I want to do? I want to add letter spacing here. But when you add letter spacing, like I'm going to do so, and I'll do it up to 5, it looks better when your text is all caps. So I'm going to triple click again, put caps on, and then Jackson Brown, renowned photographer. I just gave you a very important tip there, that when you work with that extra letter spacing, make sure you go for all caps. Over here, I think the size is a little too big. I want to have it a little bit more minimalistic, which is another word for bourgeoisies. And then I'm going to go here, even for the weight. That's how thick those lines of the font is. I'm going to put it on light. That looks very, very la-di-da. Under this, I want to say a little bit something about Jackson. So I'll bring in text, bring in another text element. I'll do the same thing. I'll click on it, then I'll center align it and change it to white. You can see that there is space between these two text elements. And if you want to reduce it, you may be tempted to go into the settings over here and start playing around with the margins or even the padding. My tip is that when you're working with a heading, a one-line sentence, I would recommend that you go and change the line height. To show you what I mean, go back here to Jackson Brown, click on typography, and where you see line height, you will see that currently it's set to 1.9. If you ever want to understand how anything works, just increase it. So I'm going to increase it, and you can see what happens to this bounding box. It adds space at the top and space at the bottom. And that's what the line height does. When you want less space, you reduce it. And when you're working with a heading like we're doing here, I usually put it at 1. So you see I have more control over that space. Let's go to this one here. Click on it, go to typography, and I'm going to reduce it as well. For me, if I want to add space here, what I'll do is I'll go to add elements and look for spacer, and I'll bring it in. And this is how I will control adding space. But I'm not going to use the spacer. Let's delete that. I didn't do this in the demo, but I think a nice little white line there will be very professional. Let's do that. Go to add elements, look for the line element, drag and drop it in between, click on it, and there we have the handles. I'm going to drag it into here. Let's change the color to white, and over here is the width, the size of that little line. I'm going to make it very small, put it on 1. That's very petite. Change the text, and placeholder text, we use lorem ipsum. And I'm going to use the generator for that, loremipsum.io, and that will give you the text. You can add extra text if you want to use different one. Just click here on generate, and it will give you 5 paragraphs of random lorem ipsum. I'll choose something short over here. And then go back. Remember to triple click, select everything, Control V, Command V. Then we have to change the font. T for typography, go to Montserrat. And I think that we've got a good bang on job. And that's it. Remember, we want to make a good impression. The images speak on this site. And that's why we've got it looking like this. Nothing more. Everybody knows this is about photography. The image says it all. And I cannot underscore that more enough. When you are using what we call a hero banner, this huge big thing at the top, make sure that the image immediately tells the visitor what the site is about. I mean, I don't even need to read anything there. I know this is photography, and I can even guess it's probably landscape photography. Save our work, Control Command S, and let's go preview it on the front end. And team, if you are listening, give us a shortcut for preview. There we go. Oh boy, this looks so good. I can stop here. People will be impressed. They will know Jackson Brown is the man to hire if you want to have a sunset photo taken. You can use your iPhone for that too. Don't tell Jackson. Let's close out the front end, and now we go and we build out our other blocks. Click on Add a New Block, and then add a blank block. We don't have any columns here, and we're going to be working with 3 columns. So what we will do is click here, and then from the elements, add columns. Then create a 3rd column, click up here on the settings, and click here on Add New Column. There are a few things that we need to do. If I bring in an image element and I place it in each of these columns like so, you're going to quickly realize that we have a problem. We're not going to have that magazine layout effect that we need, because number one, we need these images to stretch all the way to the left and to the right. And for that, we need to get rid of this white space on both sides. That is because the block comes in by default on a setting over here that says boxed. This is very popular, especially if you are doing blogging. I love boxed for blogging. It's good for text. I see a lot of people make this mistake when they have a product and they have a lot of text on their site that they use full width and not box. It's very difficult to read. Having this box view for reading, very, very useful. But we are working here with this portfolio. We want everything to stretch from left to right. So remember, go to your block settings over here, and then for the width, you're going to select full, and that will stretch everything for us. Looking good. What have we got here? And these are the 3 levels that we will be working with constantly throughout this tutorial. I like to refer to them as levels. It's not technically correct, but it helps me visualize it better. The bottom level is the block. The block is in the back. So over here is our block, all our settings over here. Then the level on top of that are columns. And the columns you can see here with the blue bounding boxes. And they are on top of the block. And on top of the columns, we have our images. Right. And what we have to understand at this moment is that we want to achieve something similar to this. We want these images, we want 30 pixels on the side, so we have to get rid of a lot of things here. For example, we see there's space up here, and we see there's space down here. Now, if I hover here, you will see the bounding box for the column is here. So this area is our block, 75 pixels at the top, and we don't want that. We want that down to 0. Now you may tell me, but shouldn't we leave some for the margin? Remember, that's the word, margin. This is inside the block, which is padding. So we have to bring this down to 0. So let me go and find it. I can click here and drag, and I take it up, but I'm going to get stuck at 15%, and I can squash my mouse as hard as I want. That 15 pixels are going to remain there. To get it down to 0, we will go into more settings. Go to the block settings here, settings, and then more settings. And over here we have the padding. So let's do the same. Let's link them, and I'm going to just drag it down all the way to 0. And now we've removed the padding at the top, any padding on the left and right also gone, and the bottom. But here we face something interesting. There is still a white border around here. We know we've removed that for our block. So where is this coming from? And that's what I told you earlier. By default, elements come in with certain settings. let's start with the column. If you go to the column and you click on the column, settings and more settings, you will see that the column comes in with padding of 5, 15, 5, and 15. Let's take all of that away so that we can bring back and have more control. To uniformly work with all 4 sides, just link them up here and drag it down all the way to 0. Okay, you can see it looks different now. There is still a little white space up there, so where's this coming from, Bobby? Now, Bobby, if you go to the image and you click on the image, settings, more settings, you will see that there is a margin applied, and I don't know why it does that. Let me just bring this back. Go away, don't be so sticky. Margin, you will see there's 10 pixels and 10 pixels. So to get rid of that white space there at the top and the bottom, we type in here 0 and 0. Now when you look at it, it's all gone. A bottom? Why the bottom still has? Oh, it's gone. I can just drag the image. Now you will see, as I drag the image, it fills it out. Of course, naturally, we have to apply it to these 2 fellows as well. But this is the lazy world of website making. If we can just duplicate anything we did previously, why on earth do we want to go and change the settings for these 2 as well? So to do that, I'm going to go up here to this column and duplicate it. Not add, duplicate. And I'll do it twice. 1, 2. And then I'll go to these 2 and I'll go to the column, delete, go to this column and delete. Ah, magic, right? Let's save it and go have a look at the front and see what we have here before we bring in any images. Okay, we're happy with this one. And then we see we've got our 30 pixels margin here from this one, but we don't have anything yet for this block. So before we do that, think for a moment, how are we going to apply those 30 pixels to the second block? For the top one, we had gone here to the block, settings, more settings, and we had applied 30 pixels all around. You see, left, top, bottom, and right. But if I do that to the bottom one, go to settings, more settings, margins, let's link them and put in 30 pixels. Something else is going to happen, and it looks okay to you at this moment. But you have to remember you're also applying 30 pixels at the top. So the better approach here would be to only apply to the left, bottom, and the right. So I will decouple them here. Click on this and delink the 4 sides. And then for the top, I will bring that to 0. Okay, now we have applied that. Let's update Control-Command-S and preview it to make sure that we've got those margins fixed. Looking good and looking good. Right, you're beginning to understand what's going on here. Let's close this again. I'm going to have this column here on the left at 50%. So grab the handlebar here in the middle, click and hold and drag, and look at the overhead display up there until you get to 50%. Okay, good. And then these 2 are going to be 25 and 25 respectively. Grab the handle and drag it to 25%. And I've got a cat talking to me here. Okay, good. So we've got 50, 25, and 25. Forget about these 2. Don't let them bother you at this moment. Let's focus on this one first. Bring in an image by clicking on the image. Go here, click on upload, and I'll begin with my first image. The moment I bring in an image, I go to the settings of that image first. Over here, and you will see height. I like to have my images at 100% height, so I'm going to type in 100% just to make sure it's the way I want it to be. This image is a 1-to-1, so I want it exactly this way. I want it to have this approach to a square because I know it's 50%, but you can play around a little bit if you want. That one is up to you. Remember, if you want a lightbox effect, and a lightbox is when people click on this image, it will open up the larger image. Go here, click on the image, and activate Open in Lightbox down here. Good. Let's focus on these 2, and then we're going to make a few changes before we bring in the images. You saw that when I brought in these images, there is this gray placeholder. Here is a tip again. if you are working with this collage or grid of images, use the placeholder images first and get your layout done properly. Because I found that when I bring in the images, sometimes they are distracting. But when I just have this gray blob there, I focus a little bit better on the layout, almost like a wireframe design. Click on duplicate because we have two images down here. So what we want to do here is that we actually want to have one image up here and one image down there. So to increase the size, I'm simply going to drag a little bit like this. And I'm not going to care too much that these two are exact the same height. I can have a look here at the height is 131. And I can check this one is 100. Okay, you see, you can play around, try and get it a little bit closer and then drag it to the bottom. Same for this one. Let's do that. And then let's duplicate it. Do you see the problem we are running into here from the original demo I had shown you? Between these images, we want to apply the same frame of 30 pixels between elements. So we have to bring in 30 pixels between these two columns, 30 pixels between these two columns, and 30 pixels between these two images. This is where you're going to try a little bit, test a little bit, try a little bit, and test a little bit. Let's bring in 30 pixels first between these two columns. Listen to what I said, columns. So that means we're going to apply it to the column. But stick with me. We want to bring in only 15 pixels in this column. Let me show you. Go to this column. Go to the column. Settings, more settings. Go to padding. And then here on the right, we'll bring in 15 pixels. I'll type it in. You'll see that it added 15 pixels here, but you also will see that there's a white space here at the bottom. That is not padding. That's purely how the image resizes. So if I want this image again all the way to the column bottom, click on the image and just drag it until you get and see that movement there. Okay, there, I will leave it there. Now we have to bring in 15 pixels in this column on the left and on the right. Okay, hang on. Let's go to settings and more settings. Delink, and then on the right, we can bring in 15. You see here, and on the left, we're going to bring in 15. All right, so now we've got 15 plus 15 gives us 30. Ah, that's what you were doing. Okay, let's drag these two down again to fill them out. And then we have to do for this one, only 15 pixels here on the left. Go to the column settings, settings, more settings, and delink them left, and then 15 pixels. And then again, you're going to just drag these guys so that they look the same. Now the width of this image and the width of this image, technically speaking, not the same. This one is going to be a little bit narrower than this one. But once you bring in the images, nobody will notice. And guess what? Nobody cares. Well, it does frustrate me, but still, nobody cares. Now we have put in our frame around these columns. But we also need 30 pixels in here. Right, so that means now that we're inside the column, to add that 30 pixels, we have to do that with our images. So what I'll do is I'll click on one image, this one, go to settings, more settings. And now because I'm not working inside the image, I'm working outside between two elements, I'll go for margins, bottom margin, and I'll just add 30 pixels there in total. What I'll do then is I'll click on this one and just drag it up a little bit until it aligns with this image here. We do the same for this one. Settings, more settings, and then the same bottom 30 pixels. Right, and then we do the same for this one. Let's just scroll up, drag it up. Good. Ah, do you see what we've got here? Uniformity, my lad. 30, 30, 30. Let's save it and then let's go view it to make sure that indeed, it does display that way. So our image over here, loading, and then we can just put in placeholders over here. Let's do that. Click on these images and we upload them one by one. This is number 2. And I wonder if I jump through this, if my internet and Brizy can handle it. Let's bring in another one over here, which is this one. Okay, and before I move on, I know I maybe have to move the selector here. Let's see. We want this guy standing there looking at the rocks. Okay, what is he doing? And then same for this one. When I look at these images, I always wonder, where are these places? Okay, this one looks fine. Let me see if I can just bring a little bit more. Okay, good. I like that. And this one, I want to look at the selector again. No, I think that's a good focal point. Let's see this one. I like that one better. So you put the focus for each image the way you want it to be. And then let's go and switch on the light box. Okay, light box and light box. Save our work, Control Command S. Go to the front end and let's also test the light box. Okay, good. This one we have no problem with. We have our margins set very well. If I click on the image, it loads the original one in its full dimensions. Absolutely stunning. Right, and this one as well. Good. Before we continue to the next part, very, very, very important, and that is we will have to go and check how this will look on a tablet. And if you ever want to check on any of your browsers how it will display on an iPad or on a phone, you go to your keyboard and you hit F12 there at the top. It will open the inspector, and then if you want to see those responsive views like we did at the beginning, there's usually a little icon up here that allows you to toggle between the devices. Click on that, and again we are into that view that we had seen earlier. The first thing we notice is that we do not have a margin for our main image, but we do have margins over here. What is going on here? This looks really gnarly. We have to go fix this. Same over here. Though this looks okay, we will have to do some alignments here at the bottom. There's some work to be done. Let's close this. F12 to get out of it. And in fact, we can just close this page. So responsiveness is very important. You can imagine if somebody's going to go on a mobile phone and look at your photography site, they're not going to be very impressed when they see this mess. Let's go to the top first and work on this one alone. And I'll go to the sidebar here where we see the little screen and select tablet. This is how it will display on a tablet. So why don't we have those margins that we have on our desktop? We added these margins. Why are they not here? And in Brizy, it works like this. Brizy has certain fixed settings between desktop, tablet, and mobile. And it doesn't always translate to the next level. Sometimes when you work with an element, let's say a font size, and you apply a font size of this size here, then it will apply it also to tablet and mobile, but not in Brizy. Brizy gives you very unique controls over each and every part in your tablet and your mobile displays. Now that means you have to do a little bit extra work, but in the long run, it is less frustrating because if you then make any changes on the desktop, it won't affect your other displays. So you have to get used to that. So how do we bring in those margins? Again, remember what we had done. Go to the block here, and again, you will see the same settings over here for the margin. Let's link them, and I'll type in 30. Now here is where you will have to make a decision. Do you want 30 for a tablet? Or do you want something less? I'm going to stick to 30. I still think it's okay. We need to make a few other changes here. First of all, we don't see Jackson anymore. Let's go to the background and you see I have control of bringing Jackson back into the picture. Literally, I have that control. And this will only work then on tablet. So you have this responsive individual control from desktop, tablet to mobile. The other thing is, if we look here that this text is too big, so what we can do is click here and let's reduce the size so we can bring it into one line. And I think that is way too small. So instead of having it on one line, let's bring it back to 2 lines, but let's take it all the way up to Jackson Brown, 1 line, and Renowned Photographer, 2nd line. But I don't want to make the text bigger, so how can I break it to go to a 2nd line? To do that, we add padding inside here of the text. So if I go up here to the padding, I delink it, and then on the left, I'm going to add 50 pixels. Let's see if that works. And on the right, I'll add 50 pixels. It hasn't cut it yet. Let me add another 50 pixels to each, 100 pixels on the right and 100 pixels on the left. Okay, and I actually like that. Did you see what we did there? Because we had put the line height on 1 for the desktop, now it's a little bit squashed. I'm just going to add a little bit more here. And do not worry, the changes you are making here aren't reflected on the desktop. Everything still stays the same. That's great. That's absolutely great. We're going to leave it like that. Ooh, looking so good. Now let's go to the header down here. Now you will say, hey, but look at all those borders. They're already there. No, they are there, but they are not there the way you think they are there. These are the pre-made settings. So if I go to my column up here and I just show you, you will see again we have all this padding that's applied. And that's not what we want. So the best solution here again is to try and reduce everything and just bring it in so that you have that control. So let's start again with our bottom layer, which is our block. Click on the block and our settings over here. We're going to click it and we're going to reduce our padding all the way to 0. Then we go to our margins, put that on 30. So we have the margin of the block. I'll delink it, and then for the top margin, I'll put it on 0. Why? Because we already have 30 here at the bottom for this block. Then let's go here. Now we're going to click on this column. You will see we have padding. Link it, drag it all the way to 0. Click on the image. And then where we margins, make sure it's 0 and 0. Okay. Then, remember what we did? We clicked on this column and then we applied padding here on the right border of 15. Delink the padding now, and then right border, put it on 15. So it's starting to look the way we did previously. Click on the image and drag it to the bottom. I think by now you're saying, not again. We have this every time. Yep, if you want to make it look good, you have to invest the time. It's just one of those things you have to get used to. Let's go to this column. Click on the column settings over here. Padding again, drag it all the way to 0. Let's do the same for this column so we can just get all of this out of the way and start working with it. Then click on this image. Do the same for the image. Where are we? Margins. Going to put it on 0, 0. Same for this image. This image, I'm going to also just put it on 0 and 0. And actually, there's a shorter way for you to do it, but I just want to do it like this at this moment. So what's going on? That one I still have on. Let's put it on 0. Let me see. Okay. This one, oh, why did I miss those bottom margins? Okay. Before I start dragging them to fit it in, I have to bring back that padding. So I will do that first. So I'll click here again, and then on our margin padding of here, I'll bring in 15 pixels here to give us 30 in the middle. And I'll 15 pixels on the right to give us 15 here. Then I go to this one, and I only need to bring in 15 on the left. And this is where I said earlier, now you have to think 30 pixels. Now these images start to look really, really tiny. Is it worth it? Maybe go for a smaller one, not 30 pixels, but 15 pixels. But guess what? I'm not going to cry over that. Don't cry for me, Argentina. I'm going to move on because I think it looks okay. Then we have to bring 30 pixels here between these images. So I'll click on the top one, go to the margin, bottom margin, and type in 30. And I do the same for this one. And now comes a tricky part. First, I will align this image with that one next to it. You see this one? And then I'll try and align this one. And I use the word try because if it happens the way it happened earlier to me, you are going to see we're not going to be able to align these guys at the bottom. Touch wood, let's see, update. Let's go to the front end. And to get into that responsive display, remember F12 on your keyboard. And we're looking now at tablet, iPad. So here we go, the iPad. And as I scroll down, lo and behold, this time it worked properly. What happened to me earlier is that one of these images were a little bit shorter. So even though it looked here correct, it didn't display here correctly. So what I did is I had to go back and forth, drag a little bit in here and there, and then finally I got it right. But we still need to go and look at our iPhone. Same thing that we're going to run in here for the margins. So we go through that. There's another tip that I want to give you before we go into this. And that is that do not, and I repeat, do not build your entire site and finish and then go and do your responsive displays for tablet and mobile. And why not? Because I am making changes now here to this block here. But guess what I'm going to do in the future? I'm going to duplicate this block and use it lower down on my page again. And because I'm making all these changes now, I don't have to make those changes again. I can simply swap out the pictures. So when we get to that point, you're going to see the benefit of taking care of your responsive design from step one. And I stress this because I always forget. I tend to create more and more work for myself. That's why I'm saying to you, let's go to mobile as well and make our changes here. First, we have to make changes up here. We go to our block, and then it's going to be our margin, a margin of 30, right? And then let's change our text size a little bit. Currently, it's at 22. And then we have to add in line height. Okay. And this one, I think it looks okay. But we don't see Jackson. This is a very weird one. It looks like some kind of Mars rover image. Go to the block, to the background, and let's bring in Jackson again. Jackson is back again. In fact, no. Because he's looking that direction, it's not a good idea to put him in the middle. That doesn't look good. He is looking to our right, so it's important that we have a little bit space here. It leads the eye. So we just drag him, get rid of the backpack. Yeah, this is good. Then let's scroll down. Again, you will say, hey, JP, we've got margins here. Let's do the same thing we did earlier. Let's first get rid of them, and then we bring them back. So we start with the block, go to the block and the settings up here, link the padding, and reduce it. But now we have something very different here. We have these images stacked. Why did that happen? Why didn't the images do our little layout that we had spent so much time on when we were in desktop and in tablet? And the reason is it just doesn't look good. But you know, you can do it if you wanted to. You grab the handle here of the column and you drag it in, and you can go through the same process for all of them, drag them in. I just think for a mobile display, not a good idea. So to undo that, Control Command Z, and we're back to it. So what we do when it comes to images, we prefer to keep them stacked. And that's how we're going to do it here. The first thing I'll do is let's go to our column and we bring in our margins around, link them all, put it on 30. So we have those margins of 30 pixels around, and then we go here and delink them, and for the top one, we take it down to 0. An interesting little glitch in Brizy when you are within cell phone display is that often when you do this and you resize things, you have this image that totally overlaps to the side. That is just how it looks within the builder. It will not display like this on the front end, I hope. Let's update, and we go to the front end again, and we are still here, so I'll just refresh this to show you that we should have those margins. Okay, we've got it now for our top image, and as we scroll down, we have it here on this side as well, and it doesn't overlap. The image doesn't overlap all the way to the side. So just remember that you can, if you want to, maybe make some changes like this, and you will see immediately it flips back in. So just click on the image, drag it a little bit, and boom, it just jumps right back in. But we're going to do something special here. Because we have so many images on the site, what I want to do is to make it more user-friendly for somebody standing in a subway and on a MRT, MTR, whatever we call it, and going through it and then looking at these images. So I want to make it a thumb size if I think in terms of a screen. The first thing I will do is I'll go here to this column, which is my first column, and I will reduce my margins to 0. Okay, 0 and 0. And then I'll go to the image and stick with me here. I'm going to reduce the top to 0 and the bottom to 30. And as I type in 30 here, I'm going to correct myself because now I remember I think 30 pixels is just way too big for a mobile display. So I want to change it. Sorry for that. Let's go back to the top here, click on our settings, and I'm going to, instead of 30, make it 15 pixels, just half it. I think that's more reasonable. Let's do the same for the second block. Where are we? Let's link it then first, 15. and then delink, and the top one, I'm going to put it on 0. Okay, that's much more reasonable. I think it looks much better. Let's just make sure our column here, okay, everything is done. And then for our image, I'm just going to drag it so that it can fill up everything. And our column, we keep our column at 0, 0, 0, nothing there. And then for the image, the bottom margin, I'm going to put on 15, which means I'm applying that 15 margin now to my image at the bottom. And now I'm going to do the next. I'm going to grab my image and I'm going to reduce it. Let's see what we have here. I think, let me put it on 30% height. Okay, this is not going to be the same for each and every image, but at least we can gauge it a little bit. So we go to the next column. When we see the column, make sure we have no margins, 0 and 0. Okay, click on the image and then top margin 0 and bottom margin 15. Starting to get it. Let's drag it down. And if I go to my settings, you will see it's different because the image height is determined by the resolution of the image and not what you see here. So you just have to kind of here guess, okay, this one looks more or less the same like that one. No one is going to notice it. Let's go to this one. Same procedure. Click on the image settings. Over here, top is 0, bottom is 15. Click and drag. There we go. And then we go for this column. Same thing. Make sure we take out all the margins of the column. Then go to the image. No margin at the top, 15 at the bottom. And then I click on it and I drag it down. There. And we do the same for this image. No margin at the top and 15 at the bottom. I think this is the last one. Sure, I know it seems like a lot of work, but you're going to be so pleased with it at the end, and you're going to be so happy when you do not have to do this again when we copy this. Update, Control Command S. Go to the front end, refresh this, and the first thing is we will have a little better display here because our margin is not that invasive like it had been before. And look at that. You can imagine this is what you want to see when you go to someone's photography portfolio. You can see their images very nicely, and you are controlling this with your hand and your thumb, and as you click on it, it opens up the light box for you with the entire image in. And this is the challenge that you will have when working from a desktop to a tablet to a mobile, that if you try and stick to your design that you have on the desktop, you're going to eventually run into problems on mobile. And you have to get that frame of mind that you are basically working with two designs. Tablet, you either designed mobile version or desktop version, like we had done here. For the tablet, we had gone with the desktop version. But when it comes to mobile, you have to make those hard choices. It looks very good, maybe like this on a desktop, but on the mobile, it's going to be squashed. It's not going to look good. F12 to get rid of it, but let's close this page out anyway. Back in the builder, let's go to our desktop and work on our next page. Now we get to the part where we start taking shortcuts. Shortcut number 1 is I'm going to make another block with 2 big images like this. To do that, I'm not going to bring in a new block. I'm going to go to this block, click on it, and duplicate it. So we have these 2 blocks now. Then I'll go to the first column and duplicate it. Go to the third one, delete it. And the fourth one, delete it. And look at that. Ooh la la, that was so easy, right? The only thing that we have now is that we have to change what we've got over here. This column here is perfect, but we need to make changes here. So if we go to our column here and we go to settings and more settings, we will see that we had applied 15 pixels on the right, which we don't need. But we need that 15 pixels now in the middle, which we have to apply on the left. So apply that and look at that. You are done. Amazing, right? And you don't have to worry about any margins because you just applied the same margins from the top. What you need to do is change the image. Delete this one, bring in a new one. Where are we now? This one. Cape Town. I think it's Cape Town. I saw the image and it looks like Tafelberg. I want to say Tafelberg. Table Mountain for you in the know. Right? Let's drag this one a little bit. I like it like so. And you will see that because we have just copied everything, the light box is already activated. You don't have to go through those settings again. Let's click on this image, do the same, delete it, bring in a new one over here. This one is all about snow. And same thing, the light box is already activated, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, load, Mr. Image. Today, there we go. And again, you have to decide how you want to bring in that selector. I think both of these humans should be included here. At the bottom, I see there's a little pixel there. I wonder if I can drag it a little bit. Okay, let's put it there. And then we go and view it. Control S, Command S, before you go to the front, click on preview. And how amazing was that? Okay, we bring it in, but we have to go back to our tablets to go and see how that will look. So we go in the Builder tablet, and now we have to make a decision. Do we want this to be a full square, or do we just drag this one until we get here? And I think that's what I'm going to do. But again, we have to make changes to our column. And because we went through all that effort here at the top, I can make these changes so easily now. I don't have to remove any margins from my images. It's already gone. I simply can make these few adjustments. So on the right, take that padding away. And on the left, bring in 15. Okay, let's see. At the bottom, it's nicely aligned. And then let's go to our mobile. And look at that. We just need to drag this one a little bit smaller, and same for this one, because it had copied the settings of these. So we don't have to make any changes here. Okay, update. And let's go see if it looks any good. Refresh the front end, and then to test it, we're going to shake down on F12, toggle it on. Our tablet looks superb, Janie. There we go. And it does work very nicely. And iPhone X, let's have a look. Yep. There's extra space here. So where did we apply that margins? Right, and I know what's going on here. There's too much space because I've got a margin of 15 for both, for this image as well as the block. So let me just go to the image here. And I'm going to reduce that to 0. Same for this one. And then that should take care of that extra little white space that we see there. It's updated. Keeping my fingers crossed. And the crossing seems to help. Good. I can see this one here is a little bit bigger than that one. But I'm pretty sure anyone standing on a shaking subway train is not going to notice that. So we are happy with it. And it's free. Did I mention to you it's free? Right. So let's exit here, toggle it off, F12 to get out of it. Oh, we've done very, very, very good. Now, let's make it even easier. Let's go back to the back end, to our desktop, and we're going to duplicate this block again. Go to the settings of the block, duplicate it. But now, we're going to bring in 4 little square images next to each other. And to do that, we're simply going to copy. So let's go to the last one, and we duplicate, and we duplicate it. 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing that we need to change again here is margins. So let's change the images this time first. Bring in different images. I like this tree. Makes me think of a movie, The Tree of Life. I'm not sure. That was the name of the movie. Strange movie. Interesting movie. And let me just see. I think the selector here, we have to move it a little bit. Yeah, I like this part in it. Good. So we quickly bring in our margins. We've got 15 here. We have to bring in 15 pixels for padding on the right. I keep using the word margins, and I realize it should be padding. Same over here. 15, and we'll fix those bottom issues very soon. And this one we don't need to because it's already flushed. So now click on the image, just drag it to the bottom again. Same for this one. And we've got 30, 30, 30. Let's go to tablet and see how that plays out. Same thing here. We did decide to keep it on 30. So when I click here, I have to bring in 15 for the column. So go to the column, 15 on the right. And same for this one. This column as well, 15 on the right. And then click on the image and drag it to the bottom. Same for this one. Same for this one. And then over to mobile. Let's see. Now we have to add in 15 pixels at the bottom. For this one. This one. This one doesn't need 15 pixels. Why not? Because the block has 15 pixels at the bottom. This image is way too big. Let me just reduce it a little bit. Why I see two of him here? That's interesting. Let's go. Oh, I didn't change him. Let's change him. Nobody's that important. A waterfall. Good idea. Let's bring in the waterfall. Okay, this one is going to be challenging because we want that person looking into the canyon. It's going to be a challenge. Let's update. Let's go preview. F12. No, let's first have a look at the entire page. Ah, this is a good portfolio. Really, if you are looking to impress a photographer friend of yours or anyone, you just design this for them. You do it in Brizy Cloud free. You give them the link and say, hey, next time you're working on a project and somebody contacts you, just share this link with them. Absolutely stunning. Okay, but the question is, how will this look in tablet? F12, activate it up here, and let's start with our tablet first, iPad. I want to give you advice. Don't go for iPad Pro. iPad Pro often goes into the same function as desktop, so it's going to look different on an iPad Pro. Just stick to iPad. That will give you a better idea. Okay, it looks good, it looks good. And this is what happened to me earlier. Even though it looked fine, it didn't display right. So let's jump back into the back end, go to tablet and see, because I changed the image. That's what happened. Okay. And then let's click on that so we can bring in either the waterfall or the dude. Waterfall or dude, or is it dudess? Waterfall. Waterfall. Waterfall is going to win. Let's have a look on mobile again. Okay, also some changes here. Let's bring that up a little bit. Save it. And refresh. Much better. Let's click on it. Loading image. And it loads the full resolution image. And then let's check it out on iPhone X. Yup. We are happy. We are happy with this. I think these images tad smaller than the ones at the top. But I like it a little bit smaller. These guys are maybe a little bit too big. You can make those decisions. F12 to get out. And you're back to the front end. Let's close that. Back in the builder, desktop, we've done a good job. And basically, we're going to do two things now. That's going to be cheating, and that's what we love to do. We're going to just copy these blocks. So the first one I'm going to do is this one here. I'm going to copy it again, duplicate, and then I want it here below. To do that, go to the sidebar on the left here. Reorder blocks, click on that, and you will see. Now you will have these two appear here. Click and drag on this one at the bottom. And we're not going to change anything except the images. We've made all those changes earlier, so at this point, they should be exactly the same for tablet and mobile like the others were. There may be a few here and there, depends on the position. And I love that photo. Absolutely stunning. Must have been so cold. I can just imagine it. And let's see where we will put the selector for this one. I do want the lady in the image, so I'll drag it down. And let's just drag this one a little. No. What? No. Pixel, no. Pixel, no. Okay. And then we go tablet. Ooh. Why? Drag this one down. But see, even though we have to drag the image, we don't have to do anything for the margins. And that's the beauty of this part. Okay. Same for this one. Let's make it a little bit smaller. But I do think having a look at this, these guys are too small. Right? You have to always imagine somebody on a phone. They are using their thumb, they're using their index finger. Is there enough space to interact with it? And in fact, when you have too many small elements on a phone, if you go to Google and they do a speed test for you, they will actually penalize you for that, because they were saying, you know, on a mobile device, this is too small for people to interact with. Let's update this. And we did so little. Preview it, click here on the preview button just to make sure that it looks good. And again, I recommend that you do this back and forth all the time so you don't come to the end. Now, you see that for me, that little 1 or 2 pixels here at the bottom where they aren't aligned drives me nuts. But again, it's something that you shouldn't have sleepless nights over. You're not going to get it perfect. It's good as is. Let's see for, and let it just load. That looks good. Test it. Looks good. And make sure iPad as well. Okay. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. How easy was that? And we're going to keep it easy. Let's leave this open. Let's go back to the desktop. And now we go to this one that we had designed at the beginning. We do exactly the same. We duplicate this one. Now we have 2 blocks. Go to the sidebar reorder blocks and grab this one and put it here. Okay, so this one is now at the bottom. And again, we go through the same thing. We are just going to switch out the images. Let me see. Oh, love this daffodil photo. Makes me think of Ice Age, the 2 rhinos. Rhinos, right? Not sure what they were. Fighting over the daffodil or admiring it. Click here. Let's change the images. Enough of Ice Age. Okay. Sunset. No, I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to use this one instead. Same for this one. Let me just see the focal point for this one. I want more mountains. Change this one out. Where are we here? So these are all skyline and landscape and horizons, I guess. I wonder what I typed here when I was searching for this. Must be something like a horizon. Horizon. That's the thing when you speak Afrikaans and some of these words are so close related. Pronunciation just changed a little bit. Never know which one it is. I like this gorge here, so let's do that. Good. Let's test it again. First, look at tablet. Okay, so we need to just make a few changes here because we had changed the size. And it doesn't really matter how you decide or what you decide you want to do here. You have the margins all sorted out. So the only thing you need to do is make sure that these guys line up nicely with each other. Let's do the same for mobile. There will be some problems here. The moment you resize them on the front or at the desktop, they're going to resize here too. Let's change this. Okay. Oh, I love this photo in that wide view. Where am I now? Here, let's drag it down first. And let's bring this a little bit. And the bottom one, just give it a little bit more. Update. We're almost done. Amazing. How much time? We're running over an hour now. If you have prepared your photos and you have some idea of what I'm doing, and you take out all the jabbery chit chat that I've done in between, you can do it in under an hour. But wait, we still have to finish, right? Let's refresh here and have a look at our tablet. Okay, scroll down. Good job, good job. And then for iPhone X, let's just bring that all in. Change the selector there. This one is too small. Let's see. Why is it? Okay. Didn't make that. And I want to change my focal point here. Okay, that's always going to be a tricky one. Okay, then we go there. Update that. And now we've brought in all the images for the portfolio. The only thing that we're going to do now is bring in a contact form so that people can actually reach Jackson Brown if they want him to come take a photo of their backyard. Let's close on. We're back in the builder. Let's go to the desktop. And because I cannot remember whether I saved or not, and it's a very good habit, Control S, Command S. A little bit of cheating again. I want to bring in a contact form area at the bottom. Again, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So what I'll do is I'll go to the top where we have this full image and full height. I'll copy this one, duplicate it, go to the reorder sidebar, grab it and drag it down to the bottom. Now remember, we did apply 30 pixels all around, so we don't have to worry about margins at all. And over here, let's say, work with me. And then here, I'm just going to triple click everything. I'm interested in working with you. That sounds a little bit desperate, but it's desperate times, man. Desperate times. Let's change the background. So we go to the block settings, background, get rid of it and bring in the new one. And good grief, we can barely see anything, right? That's the problem. You need contrast. And for contrast, we often like to use an overlay. If your image isn't suitable, you bring in an overlay. Go to the block settings over here. You will see colors and overlay. Let's apply this one over here by default. And then grab this slider on the right, which is the opacity slider. Opacity is the opposite of transparency. So if you want more transparency, you drag this slider down. But you have to make sure that your image doesn't disappear like so, but also that your text is visible. And that's a little bit of a challenge, especially with that blown out sun in the background. But here it's good enough. So what do we have it here? Around 40%. Bring in a form element, and in Brizy, there's a great free form element. Click here on Add Elements. Form is over here, click and drag, and we drop it here. We will need space between this subtitle here, or subheading, and the form. So I'm going to bring in my spacer already until you see the thick gray line and drop it there. I want the email. I want somebody to leave a message and I want them to submit it, so I don't need this field here in the middle. Click on that and then click on delete. We remove that one. Click on the first field, and this is our email field. I'll change a little bit styling first, and the styling applies to everything. So if I go here to colors, you will see I have background, text, border, and shadow. The background, I'm going to do this. Grab that opacity slider, bring it down. And I'm going to bring it down to almost just 10%. So there's a little bit there in the back. Go to text, select white, but do note that the text slider here for opacity is set to 75%. I want it full, so I'm going to drag that up to 100%. The border, let's also just make sure the border is on white. And I don't want shadow, so don't click on it. This little one here that says hover is actually what we call in focus. This means that when somebody click with the mouse inside email, the color will change. So I want to apply that. I'll click here on hover. And then the first thing I will do is as they click in it, let's change it to a yellow color. Now to use a yellow, I'll go here and I have this extension installed called Color Pick Eyedropper. I'll click on that and I'll sample a yellow or a white color here. Now that's white. Let's find a nice yellow over here. There. Here. It's not as bright as I would like it to be. Copy that code. And where am I now? Let's click back here. Hover. And then border. And then here. Paste it. Okay. And we can even for the background change that too. You see the color changes a little bit. And even for the text. Okay, I'm going to grab the selector here and drag it all the way to the top so it's brighter. Great, groovy. So you see what we did here? It's white now. But as I hover over it and I click in it, it's going to change the color. Click again there and let's go to typography. Make sure you put it on Montserrat. I'm going to reduce it to 16 and I add a little bit of letter spacing there. Just a tiny little bit. Over here, you have control over this field. It's a field and we put it on email. You don't need to make changes here. Spacing, apply spacing inside. So I'm going to, it was at 15 and I think I'm going to put it on 10. I want it a little bit smaller. Let's change the button. Contact me. Double click to select the text. In caps, type in contact me. Go here where it says button and then to icon, and we remove the icon. Let's go back to the button. I like to use this no fill but with a border. So let's select that and it looks like this now. Next thing we will do is go first to the colors. Background, no, nothing. Text is white. Border, we also want white. And when people hover over it, so click here on hover, we want the background color. Click on background. And I paste that yellow color that I had used earlier. Let's just increase that. I want that. And then the text in the border. So let's click out here. I want that. I want that one. Yeah, I want that one. But this is too wide, and for what we've done on this side, this is way too much in our face. So what I'm going to do is I'll go here to the settings of the form, and then more settings over here. And I'm going to apply space to the left and space to the right. And that I'll do with padding. Remember, when we talk about space inside, always padding. If we talk about what's outside the fence or to move the fence, we think of a margin. But we are on padding and we only want to work with left and right, so decouple them over here. And instead of working with pixels this time, I'm going to go for percentage. I'm actually a big fan of percentage, but because of this site, we have this precise control over how it must look. That's why I decided to go with pixels when working with those margins. But in this case, I want to work with percentage. So for the right, I'll put it on percentage and I'm going to put it on 20%. Pretty aggressive. And same for the left. Put it on percentage and 20%. So it puts 20% of this width on the left and 20% here. And now a little bit more minimalistic. And in fact, you can squash it a little bit more because it has to fit the type of site that you have here. So if I go back to it, let's go squash it more. Let's put it on 25% both left and right. And I like that. I like that a lot. This is very nice for the last part of your site. Let's see how that works on the tablet. Okay, so remember why it looks so different, because in Brizy, as you go from one to the next, there are default settings applied. So what do we want to do here? Let's do the same. We click here and we want to do the same. Now, I used to always click here and then you have to click on more settings and then the sidebar will open. No need for it anymore. As you click here, it's already open here. So padding again, let's decouple them, put it on percentage, but this time I'll be a little bit less aggressive and put it on 15% left and right. Oh, percent. It looks a little bit better. Over here, I think we're going to leave that. Good. And let's see for our mobile. We'll have the same thing, but mobile is already squashed. So be gentle. Be gentle, JP. Going to put it on percent again, but I'll put it on 5%. Okay, 5%. And what I'll do here with this text, I want to increase the size because I want this text to be larger than the subheading that we have here. And I want to reduce the line height. Let's bring the line height also down. It's already down. Okay. I see there's margins applied here. Let me take that bottom margin out. Bring these guys a little bit closer. Click on this one and just click on this one. And take the top margin out. Bring them a little bit closer to each other. Oh, 漂亮. Very beautiful. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Great. It's quite an extensive site for a mobile device. But remember, you can get away with this in this case because, after all, it is a photographer portfolio. Let's go back to desktop. Everything is done. Everything is working. And the question is, how will this form work? Where will this go? And now that we've done everything, let's update it and let's go to the front end. And this is where you have to test things. Okay, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Let's wait for this to load. Good, good, good. And then we have this section here. Let's just do our responsiveness test, F12. That works for me. Put it on iPad. And that works for me, not with me. All right, F12. When I do testing, like a form, I try to use a different browser just to make sure that I have that confidence that this thing is working properly. And you can do that with the current browser that you are using. You just open a private or an incognito frame. I'm currently using Microsoft Edge, the new one that is running on Chromium. You can use Chrome, Firefox, the works. They all have this feature. So if I go up here and I click on those three little dots, I'm going to see New in Private window. Click on that to open it. Let's go back and I'm going to select this URL and then paste it here, enter, and it will load the page for us as if we are a visitor to the site, which means I'm seeing it as if I'm not logged in. Okay, great. You can test it a little bit for those photos. Do they load? Nice, nice, nice. Noise. And then if we go to the form at the bottom, let's go and do that. We add here Sally. Let me not use caps. Where's my caps? Off. There we go. Sally at photoworld.com. I would like to work with you, Jackson. Hi. And then just click on contact me. And if it goes through the way it should, you will get this shocking green. Your email was sent successfully. Not even Lego green is that shocking. And then where do you get this message? Because you are using Brizy Cloud free, you're going to find this within your dashboard of your Brizy Cloud. I'm going to close this. We're done with this window. Let's close this front end and we're in the backend builder. So to go to the front, bottom here, click on it and click on Go to Dashboard. Here's our photo portfolio 2. And to find that email that was just sent to you, you go up here to these three little dots and it's under leads. Now, lead is a big word for contact or email. Just remember that. Don't get worried about this word. The word lead comes from marketing and sales. It just means it's something you can follow up on. So if somebody sends you an email, it is something you can follow up on. So click on leads and you will see over here. There is it. Sally at photoworld.com. I would like to work with you, Jackson. Hi. And if you have many contacts here and you want to export it to Excel, you simply select them, click here on export, and you can choose XLSX or CSV if you're not using Excel. There you go. That's where it is. Now that we're in the front end, you can share this link with other people to access it. And here is your URL. To view it, you click on this little icon. And if you hear a noise, it just started raining and I don't know where this rain is coming from. It is so loud. So just relax when you hear it in the background. Soothing, fall asleep anytime soon. So this is the front end and you simply click on this link, copy it, and you send it to anyone you want it. And this is where I just think this is such an amazing tool, especially if you're somebody who works with art or photography and you want to display your work and you can do it for free. Work on a page like this, and if somebody asks for a reference, you can send them this page. And this is from personal experience, I want to tell you, where I had once submitted an application, a tender for a project, and they asked me for reference. And I was like, good, George, I don't have any reference at this moment. How am I going to show them my work? If a tool like this had existed way back when, it would have been so amazing. I would have built it out within 2 hours. Well, of course, preparing the images would have taken me longer, but then I would have sent them the link and they would have been so impressed. What the hey, Jackson has a website. And then from there, they can go through these images. It's just absolutely amazing. But then they are going to say, Jackson's website is called avocado1294334. What? And you can change that. You're not going to change the .brizy.site because this is the whole point of free. Some things you have to trade off. But to change that, go back to the dashboard and over here you click on that URL and you have access to this subdomain. So when you click here, it's going to ask you, what do you want instead of avocado? Don't type banana, of course. You're going to type Jackson Brown photography. .brizy.site, and then you click submit. If no other Jackson Browne photographer has taken this extension, you are in luck and you will get the green check up there that says done. And now it will update here. So if I click here again to preview it on the front end, you're going to see that it updates to jacksonbrownephotography.brizy.site, and they're going to be so impressed. You're going to get the job immediately and you're going to work for free. That's what they probably had in mind from the beginning. Let's agree that this is a good site for the purpose. Let's also agree that what I had shown you in how to bring in these margins, there is more than one way. For example, I had used padding for the columns, but you could have also used margins for the images. And this is something that the more you get comfortable with it, the more you are going to decide what works better for you. Asking me, JP, what is the recipe is like asking me how I prepare pasta. How much salt do I put in my food? I'm going to tell you a little, and you're going to say, no, give me a precise number. It's extremely difficult to tell you that. The only thing I can tell you for sure is that I had decided I want to have these frames, these borders of 30 pixels. That thing was a constant. The other thing I decided is that when I go to mobile, I'm going to make it 15 pixels so it looks a little bit better. The only other decisions I made was which images do I want to use here and what were the sizes, the dimensions of them. The rain is really breaking out very loudly now. I hope you can hear it because I think it's a good exit for the end of this tutorial. I feel like I want to dive right back into bed. I hope this was useful. If you like this kind of tutorial, please give us a thumbs up. That really encourages because it takes a lot of preparation and work to roll out these tutorials. We've had requests from many people for more longer tutorials showing us how to make specific sites, how to build out full websites, and it will be really great if you guys were to support this and also pass it on. Go over to Brizy Cloud, sign up for Brizy Cloud free, test it out, and then of course if you are interested in Pro, you can go Pro. This is JP signing off. Stay safe, be well, see you again.